India might just become the next big base for Apple to manufacture and export its smartphones. Now, there's a plan brewing in place which Apple is reportedly mulling over, which involves shifting about one fifth of its production capacity from China to India. And you're looking at big revenues over the next 5 years. To give us the background and what the plan might entail, I have with me Tushar Gupta.
Hey Karan. So all that we are seeing with Apple, the discussions, they all are under the production led incentive scheme for large scale electronics manufacturing, which was notified by the government on April 1 this year. So basically what it offers a production linked incentive to boost domestic manufacturing, which in turn attracts large investments in mobile phone manufacturing sector and other electronic components. This include assembly, testing, marking and packaging units. Now, the scheme will extend an incentive of 4 to 6% on incremental sales over a base year of goods for the goods manufactured in India and under target segments for eligible companies. So this all will be decided. Of course, happens to be one of those companies. And this is for a period of 5 years. And the cost of this production-led incentive scheme alone is rupees 41,000 crores. So this is some serious money we are talking about. The government is making a push for companies to come in India and to manufacture. Now, why was this PLI important? Why couldn't they do without it? The companies were facing sort of a disability of almost 10% in terms of the revenues and the money they had to spend. So this production-led incentive scheme addresses 60% of those disabilities, right? Apart from that, there'll be remission of duties and taxes on exported products, which is going to incentivize more exports from India. So this is what's happening with Apple. And of course, will be extended to other companies.
Right. And Tushar, we talked so much about this restructuring of global supply chains. And we see that now Apple seems to be showing some interest in diversifying to India to some extent. But how much do you see this happening in the future? Would they be wanting to set up shop in India from China?
See, I'll have some numbers for you. The total manufacturing of mobile phones in India was 24 billion. Okay, $24 billion. Of that, Apple was just $0.5 billion. Okay. In terms of the products sold in India, Apple has a market share of around $1.5 billion, which is just 2 or 3% of the market share. Now compare this to with China. Okay, the production value of the merchandise made there is almost $220 billion, and the export is more than $185 billion. So the numbers are not even close anywhere when it talks about China and India. The good thing is we're still talking one fifth, which is a huge number. If you look at these numbers, the kind of market share Apple has in India, which is very less, given in India people prefer mobile handsets which are in the neighborhood of 10,000 rupees, which are your cheap Androids manufactured by the likes of Vivo and Oppo. Apple doesn't have much of a headway. But Apple has been encountering problems in China, and I'll list them all for you. Firstly, it's the vulnerability. What COVID 19 taught us, do not put all your eggs in the same basket, do not put all your manufacturing in the same country. Apple has realized that. Of course, they're getting some excellent labor supply chains in China, but they've realized they need to diversify. The vulnerability factor is there. Second is the trade war. Now, when the trade war occurred between America and China, somehow Tim Cook could convince the White House to not have tariffs on the iPhones that were manufactured in China, but the same couldn't be done for other products that were manufactured. So let's assume, also remember, since it's 2020, it's the election year in the United States. If you get a Republican president back in the White House, which is going to be President Donald Trump, the trade war is going to be extended. So Apple will have additional incentive to diversify, if not leave China. The other thing is, Samsung at one point used to sell one out of every smartphones in China. So one out of every five smartphone ever sold in China used to be a Samsung. Today it's less than 1%. From 20%, it's gone to 1%. And the same fate is eventually going to come for Apple as well, because the Huawei factor, the local manufacturers now want to capitalize on the 1.4 billion people market in China. Apple is struggling there. So the falling market share is also one more reason Apple wants to get out. Another thing, unlike India, where the policy dictates manufacturing and companies relocating the Western, not just from China, but even from the West, in Beijing, in China, it's the closeness to Beijing that matters. Now, Apple has great closeness with Beijing. Tim Cook has been instrumental in setting up Apple's entire business in China. But how long? That's going to be the question. If the trade war is prolonged further, how long will that closeness last? That's another factor. So these are the factors that are pushing Apple out of China.
Right. Now, Tushar, you've listed down a lot of good reasons for Apple to say move to India for whatever extent that they want to. And also it's clear that India would want to have that sort of a presence here. Now, what I'd like to know from you is what needs to happen in India in terms of, say, the regulatory framework and other factors in order for Apple to find it conducive to be here. Now, for instance, right now they're already relaxing labor laws, for instance, and in places like UP, it's going to go on for 3 years. So, what sort of factors like that would we need?
I'll go again point wise. First thing, here's a fun fact. Apple is already producing its new iPhone SE in India. But do you know they also wanted to produce iPhone 11 in India, their high-end model. SE is a cheaper version relatively of their all iPhone models. They wanted to produce iPhone 11 in India. But they could not because the labor in India wasn't that skilled. Even though it contracted out to the likes of Foxconn and all those companies, but the labor in India, Apple complained, as per report in the Wall Street Journal, wasn't equipped to take on the manufacturing and assembling of iPhone 11. So the first challenge is not just the labor reforms, the skilling of the labor. Even if you hand it out to a contractual company, in this case a Foxconn, which will also be responsible for Apple's India production, the skilled labor is a problem. The second thing is the infrastructure. Now, our roads, our ports, our airports aren't that great in a shape. Of course, India is investing almost rupees 100 lakh crore in the infrastructure sector over the next 5 years. We discussed this at length in other videos. But still, the infrastructure, if you compare it to China, it's just not there. So if you're an Apple or if you're a Samsung or if you're any big company of the West, you're looking at these factors. You're looking at the infrastructure. Of course, the state government can go ahead and offer you land which is twice or thrice of what you have in China. But then it's not just about producing the devices, it's also about exporting them, right? So that's one other factor. The third is the political stability. Now, China doesn't have that kind of a problem. India has. We have our state elections. We have our national elections. Now, what if there's a change of government in either of the places or both of the places? How does that impact the long-term supply chain, or how does that impact the long-term plan of the company? Because a company wouldn't be here looking to set up shop based on election tenure. They would like to be here for 10, 20 years. And the political instability really adds to a problem. The fourth problem, the land acquisition, the forest clearance, the labor unions. Of course, some sort of labor reforms that are being seen in states like Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh would address this problem. But even now, we need to get rid of the obsolete laws of these labor unions, the kind of labor laws we have still in other states that are actually hindering investments from the West. At one point, if you look, Apple has another reason, the big reason, we are a 1.3 billion people market. Now, if you saw the news last week, Ambani's Jio platform, it's getting investments from all over the world. Facebook invested some 40,000 crore. Silver Lake Investments made another big investment. And there are people looking to invest. Why? Because they see India's first super app, which will be used by 1 billion users. Now, 1 billion users on a super app also mean 1 billion handsets, at least. A one handset per person. So Apple has an incentive that they could expand their market into India from the current 2 to 3%. Even if they can stretch it to 10%, they could make up for the loss they will see in China now, as Samsung did. Because China is now starting to is giving more preference to the domestic manufacturing of mobile phone. Those companies are being preferred over the likes of Apple or Samsung. So this is one of the reasons Apple should move to India. And the government should be taking steps to accommodate their needs. Already there is some discussion on the kind of knowledge that needs to be shared between the government and the company. So all these things need to be ironed out. But we need to fix the bigger picture, the infrastructure, the labor. All these things need to be fixed. It's not just about Apple, it's about every other company that would want to diversify out of China.
Great. Thank you for your insights, Tushar.
Thanks.